Hi, I'm going to do a little walkthrough of the major arcana for the Transient Light Tarot deck. I'm using a print test deck. The final deck is still in production and still live on Kickstarter. So I'm just going to go through the major arcana cards. This is the back. I've got this hourglass design. And we'll start with the Fool. So the Fool, I mirror this image in the final card as well, this image of the eye, and this is an image of innocence. We have this innocent flower in the eye. The eye is slightly more crudely drawn than the final eye, and you here have the Fool, the traditional Fool, after the moment they've stepped off that cliff. I also break the layer of the text on all the other cards. Have a uniform text, but here I break it with this more adventurous Fool-like lettering. Moving on to the Magician, and here the 4 elements are represented by in necklaces, and these are necklaces that I actually own and use, and they're also, each necklace is represented in the 4 crown cards in the court cards in the minor arcana. So you do see these pendants reflected elsewhere in the deck. Here we have the Revealer, more traditionally known as the High Priestess. We have, instead of the pillars of Boaz and Jachin, we have vessels, and we have the contents of these vessels merging together, the 2 sides, 2 polarities merging together to reveal mysteries. We have the symbols of the moon. We have the Kabbalah formation, which is on the veil, on the Rider-Waite illustration. And here we have the Nurturer. The Nurturer is the new name that I'm using for the Empress. So what is usually a depiction of the archetype of femininity, I wanted to represent that without it being gendered. So here I've got themes of nurturing and of growth, and instead of a pregnant character, I have this pearl being formed in this shell, layer after layer, and growing into something very beautiful. We have the stars from the traditional crown, and then with it, its pairing is the Defender, which is the Emperor. And the Defender, like the pearl, I've chosen a precious gem, and this one's a diamond, and this is more about the defense side of nurture and of parenthood, and it's strong and reliable and crisp and well formed. Now this is usually the Hierophant, and I have renamed to the Proclaimer. I have replaced the papal diadem with a book to represent that voice of authority and dictatorship even. But I also wanted to bring in the symbol of the elephant, partly because it rhymes with Hierophant, but also because it's also a positive version of the Hierophant, the idea of ancestors. We know that elephants visit the graves of their ancestors, and so I like the idea of both the authorities in our life currently, but also the authorities in our life from the past. Onto the Lovers card. Here I wanted to represent it again gender neutral, so I have the open locket. It's harmonious, it's equal, but it is also open in order to nurture the goodness of this relationship. It's not closed, it's open, and we have the fiery flames of passion here. Next is the Chariot. And this is loosely based on the image that that Fausta, the writer of the poems that are going to be in the guidebook, posted on her Instagram a while ago, of her open mouth shouting and declaring. And I love the idea of the Chariot being a speaking your will into action. So this mouth opening and speaking will into action. And you have the Chariot symbols of the star and the moon, and the black and white proclamation, which is usually the figures that are pulling the chariot. And I have the pearl, and this links back to the Empress. That's correct. And then strength, and then this one relates to the Emperor, and with the diamond, and it is the traditional image of a lion that has been tamed, and the strength of the lion has been tamed and utilized through the gentleness and softness traditionally presented as a woman taming the lion with a soft touch of her hand. So I really love that idea of a deeper, more sustainable strength, not through brute force, but through inner strength and gentleness. Moving on to the Hermit, similar to my Trinity Tarot deck, I've used a candle as the idea of meditation and being alone in isolation to reflect and meditate, but I've introduced the character of the wasp, which actually relates to the tattoo on my arm, and that is a reference to a song by Sufjan Stevens, where I believe that the symbol of the wasp is used as the darker side of ourselves, or the unknown side of ourselves, which appear to be scary, but are actually quite beautiful when they're appreciated for what they are. So this is also about reflecting on your inner side and your darker sides, and the parts of you which are yet to be seen as beautiful. Here's the wheel of fortune. Again, quite traditional with the wheel, and I've got the symbols and the letters, but I've introduced the idea of this unraveling yarn of life and the roll of the dice, that there is this story unraveling in our lives, but also there's an element of randomness, but there's also an element of repetition and cycle of life, where things can be predicted, but not always so accurately. Moving on to justice. I'm a Libra, so I brought in the Libra constellation rather than the traditional scales, but I brought in the symbol of the sword and the idea of it slicing open this veil. So there's a slight reference here to the revealer, or the high priestess, that cutting away of the veil and revealing truth and executing judgment. The hanged one. Originally this was going to be a crucifix, but I ended up changing it to a anchor. So it does have that reflection of a cross, or an upside down cross viewed from upside down, but it's also this idea of setting down your anchor and letting be and sitting with the situation. The death card, again, quite traditional in its symbols, with this character death, but as a gatekeeper to change and to endings, welcoming you to accept the transience of life, to walk between those pillars of loss, and to see the flower with the 5 petals of the beauty of change. Temperance. I've got these cups spilling out. I'm always imagining it as wine in water, this idea of diluting, and possibly through dilution you can actually make something that's very potent more effective by temperance. The devil, again, direct link to the Lovers card. We have the same locket, but this time it's clamped shut, and it's a toxic connection, a toxic relationship. You have the snake from the Lovers card has come in to ensnare this partnership, and you have the scissors ready to cut the ties. This is the Tower card, and rather than the focus being on the tower being attacked by the lightning, I have this idea of it being uprooted. The foundations itself have been pulled up. I like to think of the tower as one of those moments when the carpet is pulled from under your feet. The formation of the tower itself references historical depictions of the Tower of Babel, the idea of this tower that men and women wanted to build a tower up to the heavens, up to the divine, only for it to be the plan to be destroyed by God. So I quite like that as a symbol of this trying to build up a life and all the things that you know and think you know, only for someone to come along and uproot it and give you a new perspective. And yeah, I thought that was appropriate. Next, the trio of the star, the moon and the sun. And here the star, I think of the star as your inner inspiration, the thing that really truly moves you and uniquely you. So I wanted to bring the star into the character, that the inspiration is coming from within them and watering the land and the water. You've got the traditional stars here, and you've got these tattoos on the arms suggesting that this is very individual and someone's own destiny. The moon, nice and simple. We've got 3 layers here, which represent the 3 layers in the traditional card, which is you have the very early organism. It's sort of like a crab or a lobster in the water. Then you have the dogs, and then you have the towers. And so you've got that kind of threefold here. And the towers are also referenced with the trees. And then the sun. And this is based on a painting that I did a while ago, where I did the sun as an eye. And you've got the traditional image of these sunflowers. I've got 4 for the 4 elements. There's this unity and this completion and this harvest, and this beautiful eye at the top as the divine. And all 3 of those cards, there's an element of an altar, this leading, this path leading all the way, journeying towards the sun. Then we have the Judgment card, and I've got the traditional symbol of the trumpet and a key, this idea of unlocking and truth being revealed, things that have been buried being brought back up to life. And rather than using the symbol of graves, I've used the symbol of an egg and birds, this idea of self-reflection and rebirth and rising up above judgment. The reason I went for 2 birds, at first I went for 1, but I went for 2 birds because on this card I really want to focus on the 2 sides of judgment, how we judge others and how others judge us. So I wanted this sort of conversation going on, of how we can judge each other in a very fruitful way, in a conversational way, rather than it being a one-sided condemnation. And the final card, which, as I said, links to the first card, the Fool. There's this new eye, and it's more refined and it's matured. And as you can see, the globe is in the eye. You've got a faint world map. So this eye is no longer this innocence. It's seen the world. It understands the world. You've got the 4 elements. And what I did actually for the character is I actually based it on the Rider-Waite deck for the Fool card. I traced the Fool rather than the world. So the pose is actually of the Fool, but reversed. So it's almost like I've taken the symbol off the Fool and I've reversed it. And this time, instead of marching off a cliff, it's marching with the 2 wands of mastery. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. That's the Major Arcana, and I want to do a similar video for the other 4 suits. I guess I should actually speak about the bonus cards, because that's kind of part of the Major Arcana. And these are these 3 cards. As the theme of the deck is transience and the beauty of transience, it also ties in very much with the threefold layout of our lives and the threefold manifestation of our lives. And the idea that where we are right now is we sit in this momentary position between the past and the present. So I have these 3 bonus cards, past, present and future, which line up together. They're also the only cards that bring in full colour, in terms of I use a very limited palette, but here I bring in the rainbows. And you have this progression, so you've got the DNA, the source, the planting of a seed. You've got the very now. We are in that centre bit here where the the sand is passing through the hourglass, so momentary, and we're growing. And then we have the future. We've got the outer universe, the opposite from the microscopic view here, and the fully grown trees. And it's a cycle. It's a cycle. It continues this cycle. So they're the bonus cards. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. And if you're watching this quite soon after I post this, then it's likely this is still on Kickstarter. So there'll be a link in the bio for you to back the project and pre-order your own deck. It's been upgraded, so instead of just a simple paper guide, simple one-page guide, I'm creating a 120-page guidebook to go with it, including poetry by Fausta Jolie, as you can see here. The product is plastic-free. The cards are water-based varnished, and it's been produced in the UK. I haven't been mass producing this abroad in order to bring the carbon footprint down as much as I can. The whole thing has been designed and created by me, and the poetry will be by Fausta Jolie. Thank you very much.